In our first edition of The General Speaks, we look at the game diplomacy. Specifically, can Russia really lose one of their home centers and still turn the game around to win? And if so, how? Let's find out here on Legendary Tactics. For source material, we draw from the astute observations of Rod Walker, former editor emeritus of the fanzine Diplomacy World, in The Complete Diplomat from the General Magazine, Volume 22, Number 3, published in the fall of 1985. And today, I've invited our resident Avalon Hill expert, NATO, to break down the argument. So you've dug up some old copies of the Avalon Hill magazine, The General, which back in the 70s and 80s offered a wealth of ideas on strategy. And what did you find in this edition?
Well, Walker, in his article, The Two Russias, notes that Russia is a different case than most countries when it comes to losing a domestic supply center. Usually, losing a dot in your home country is a precursor to your untimely demise, causing players to panic and turn inward in a desperate attempt to secure their borders and recapture their lost center. In fact, unless you can recover that center quickly, it's unlikely you will win or even do well.
But as we know, Russia's different. They can not only stay alive, not only do well, but can even win when they're down one home supply center. So how do you suggest a resilient Russia goes about this?
Well, turning the game around or even using this situation to one's advantage starts with the Russian leader's mental state. Losing a supply center can take a psychological toll, and players sometimes struggle with losing a supply center, becoming convinced that the situation is hopeless or that things are beginning to slide downhill. The reality is that there are options and there is a path to victory. The fact is that because Russia starts with 4 supply centers, they can lose one and effectively be at the point where most countries begin the game with 3 closely clustered centers. The focus should be on using diplomacy to protect those 3 centers and expand in another direction.
Right. So let's go back to the idea then that Russia's bifurcated. The nature of geography means that there are essentially 2 Russias. The first is the Russia North. This is the trio of supply centers here. Namely, we've got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Warsaw. And the Russian player is forced to play a north game when they lose Sevastopol, typically to Turkey. So the good news in this situation is that it's very hard for Turkey to extend their influence much further inland without an alliance with Austria. So coming from the south, North Russia can be a tough nut to crack. What strategies do you suggest in this situation?
If Turkey has an alliance with Austria, do your best to break that up, taking advantage of the natural suspicion that exists between them. The reality is that Turkey can't expand north through Russia alone. It will have to go west, and it will be pretty tough to access, say, Germany without going through Austria first. So there's a natural antipathy or tension there. So if you lose Sevastopol and can't reclaim it easily, let it go. Use your diplomatic skills to build an alliance with Turkey, built on the requirement that Turkey keeps control of Sevastopol with a fleet. From there, Russia can help Turkey against Austria if things are quiet in the north, or can focus on dealing with their enemies on the northern half of the board.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I often find that once Turkey feels like their progress against Russia is halted, they tend to be envious of the then positive Austrian position and the potential they have to push into Russia alone. So it's not a stretch for Russia to amplify those ideas through their press with Turkey.
That's right, but don't feel you have to give Turkey the game, though. Speak to Italy and France about keeping Turkey's westward expansion in check. And if Turkey gets too occupied moving west, keep your eyes peeled for an opportunity to recapture Sevastopol and even the Balkans.
That's sneaky.
Even if that doesn't happen, there is potential to win in the north with a strong navy, and by conquering Germany, England, and France. It might not be easy, but it is possible.
So let's shift our attention to Russia south. This is a more challenging situation where St. Petersburg is lost, leaving Warsaw, Sevastopol, and Moscow in your possession, and England is usually the culprit here. The reason this one is tricky is that an invasion by England is typically part of a game where England and Germany are allies, or even worse, you might be facing a western triple of England, Germany, and France. So how should you handle this?
Typically, you'll want to speak to Turkey and Austria about forming an eastern triple to counter, as breaking apart a western triple with sheer diplomacy can be a Herculean task. But if the Western alliance doesn't include France, and St. Petersburg is about all that England can expect to capture, at that point England might be amenable to an alliance, as long as you eliminate your navy in the north and allow England to hold on to St. Petersburg with a fleet. This makes Germany the next vulnerable target. If you offer some help in gaining England some supply centers there, there's really no reason why England wouldn't want to at least hear your proposal. When you look at it carefully, South Russia will not directly threaten England's position, while a German betrayal is always in the cards.
Right, so what you're really illustrating is that it can actually be very advantageous and even desirable to strategically choose to lose either the north or the south. And maybe it's not an intentional choice, but it's sounding like that might be a good option. So more specifically, my suggestion would be to choose to fight one of those battles tactically and the other battle diplomatically. And my personal preference would be to fight tactically in the south and diplomatically in the north.
Right, but one problem with this is that it does allow England to become extremely powerful, likely powerful enough to win the game, and if they do get out of control, it can be tough for a southern Russia to stop them. You're going to need to do what you can to limit English gains, if not militarily, then diplomatically or through balance of power. And if England and Germany are able to attack Russia, France has likely been put out of its misery already and unlikely to be of help. Can Austria or Turkey help out? Well, possibly, but it really depends on the board state. But Italy would be a better choice for you to ally with since there is some natural geographical isolation. You might also consider helping England to stab Germany and then join Germany in your effort to stymie England's growth, although this may lead to more of a stalemated position given the lack of naval power for either Germany or Russia in this instance.
Well, you certainly won't be popular if you take that approach, but at the end of the day, the most important idea to realize here is that losing a supply center is not the end of the world for Russia. And I mean, strategically on the board, it can actually look better if Russia does not have an overbearing presence from the beginning. So that can be a desirable goal. It'll take some skill, but Russia stands a better chance of coming back from that unfortunate circumstance than anyone else on the board.
Exactly. And we hope this brief strategy guide to Russia gave you some ideas to improve your play of the game Diplomacy.
Be sure to add your thoughts on the two Russias or on other Russian strategies in the comments. And if you haven't seen our How to Win as Russia interview with a European champion, Peter McNamara, I'll link to it now.